I'd like to call the August 22nd, 2017 special called meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Connolly?
Here.
Ms. Decatur?
Here.
Ms. Egan?
Here.
Ms. Hazard?
Here.
Ms. Healy?
Here.
Mr. Hirons?
Here.
Mr. McCosker?
I think he's in
Madam
traffic.
Chair.
You have a quorum. Oh, right.
I'm sorry.
Excellent. Before we move to our approval of the agenda, I did just want to make sure that we noted this evening, I'm sure, I don't know if all board members know about the passing of Dr. Sawyer today. It was noted today. Dr. Sawyer served the school division. I should have all my things in front of us, but I know the board would want to certainly express our sympathies and let our community know about the passing of Dr. Sawyer this morning, or this morning, I believe. So we are saddened to report that. But moving on to our approval of the agenda, please.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Our first item is to meet in closed session. I will ask Mr. Hirons to read us in.
Pursuant to Section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss or consider personnel matters pursuant to the personnel exemption at Section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are now in closed session. All right, we are back in session. I will ask that we have our closed session certification.
Whereas the Stafford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as a matter requires certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be resolved that the Stafford County School Board hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, can you poll the board regarding this certification?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Connolly?
Aye.
Ms. Decatur?
Agreed.
Ms. Egan?
Agreed.
Ms. Hazard?
Agreed?
Ms. Healy?
Agreed.
Mr. Hirons?
Agreed.
Mr. McCosker? Madam Chair, motion passes unanimously.
All right, do we have a motion out of closed session?
There is, Madam Chair. I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to our information items. We have our first information item, but as noted, the reason we tend to have special called meetings is due to urgent matters. This is the time of year regarding personnel, so I would like to encourage the board in that regard. For our first information item, 5.01 is about a contract with the Soliant Health for a school psychologist. We have discussed these types of positions in the past. Are there any questions at this time regarding 5.01?
This is addition to the ones we approved last meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Want to move to action?
Any other questions? Hearing none. I would certainly entertain a motion to move this
Move 5.01 to action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move 5.01 to action. Any discussion regarding moving it to action? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Move to approve 5.01.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please issue the contract so we can start fully staffed this year. Moving on to our next action item, which is regarding a request to approve an additional 6.5 FTEs to meet current and anticipated needs for instructional support. The attachment to that item is also in front of the board and has a list of our growth positions. I'll just do a quick overview. When we passed our FY18 budget, we included 10 growth positions which were funded in the funding request. Mr. Fulmer, if I screw it up, please let me know. But we also had an additional 10 positions in our budget that at that time were unfunded. But as part of our FY18 budget, we do include in that budget a certain amount for salary lapse that we go ahead and project. So with that set up, are there questions? I assume, Mr. Fulmer, it will probably be you, Mrs. Kale, Mrs. Boatright. I don't know who it will be. Ms. Egan, you want to start us?
I just have a quick question. Given the fact that we've had schedules released in the past few days, I've gotten several emails from folks who were concerned that we had to be determined after some of the positions, specifically at Brook Point, Spanish teacher, a couple other DE or AP English. I'm assuming we're going to get some kind of update going forward as to what's filled, what's not filled, that kind of thing. And I guess what I'm saying is what am I telling my parents?
Right. Since Thursday, we have filled 2 of the 5 vacancies at Brook Point High School. Brook Point is still looking for a business, Spanish, and a math. And the plan moving forward is, in the absence of finding a certified teacher, that we'll use a long-term sub. But we're still holding out hope, at least for this week.
What happened with the, I know we were having a discussion about having an itinerant world language teacher that would go from Stafford Middle School to Brook Point. And I know we had a full-time Spanish teacher at Stafford Middle last year. Is there any way that we can, maybe in absence of, what they don't want to hear is people are starting to get a little bit upset at the term long-term sub, and I understand why as a parent. So is there anything that we can do to maybe look at revisiting that idea of having an itinerant teacher and utilizing that on the high school level?
Well, I know that Mrs. Kale and Mr. Nichols have been closely looking at schedules to see if there is any room to travel teachers for whatever sections that we have open. I think that one of the issues we're having is that it's so hard to find a foreign language teacher. And there isn't any room right now available to travel a teacher.
Okay. Do you know if we still have the Spanish teacher that was at Stafford Middle School?
I don't know right offhand without looking at their roster.
Okay. It would be interesting to know if we still had her and if there's any way. I mean, I'm not saying that, 8th grade Spanish isn't as important as 9th or 10th or 11th grade Spanish or even 12th grade Spanish, but as far as college preparedness goes, I kind of think it is. So if we, just so I have some background on what's happening, so I can talk to my parents about it, that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, that isn't the only Spanish that we're looking for. We still have one at North Stafford
Okay.
that we're still looking for.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Ms. Healy?
Okay, this is an aside, but speaking of Spanish teachers, I can speak from experience from another high school that I was not at all impressed with 2 of the 3 Spanish teachers my daughter had, and questioned how we even, brought them on. So I didn't do it at the, at the school, but, you know, as a Spanish major, I, you know, have a special place in my heart for Spanish. And when I saw the things coming back and forth or heard what they were doing in the classroom, and it was just kind of crazy. But I think those two teachers aren't there anymore. But how do we screen our teachers for something like that? I mean, you know, we're obviously desperate to get, you know, Spanish teachers. So somebody comes in and they have the qualifications, do we go, oh, boy, we got one here, you know? Or do we check it all?
Well, there's the initial interview process, and typically the schools will use it, especially if it's Spanish. They'll have a Spanish department chair or a foreign language department chair who will interview with them. There's a reference check on the people as well. And as far as once they start teaching, we'll totally have to rely upon the evaluation process. So first-year teachers are supposed to have at least 3 observations. They'll have walkthroughs. They'll have an evaluation at the end of the year. So there is a process in place at least once they come to us with the observations evaluation.
Just as an example, at the back-to-school night, I mean, we're talking, what, 8 years ago, we got a letter, or, you know, or maybe it was not back to school, but Mrs. Kale knows what I'm talking about, because her daughter took Spanish, too. Don't you know, you didn't have these problems? But, you know, there were like 20 English grammatical errors in the letter that was sent, in a letter that was sent to parents from the Spanish teacher. But anyway, that's an aside, but I just want to make sure that we do get a good Spanish teacher, you know, to fill these 2 critical high school positions.
Mr. McCosker?
Hi, is Chris there? I just wanted to talk about, unless you can, when I answer budget stuff. I didn't think you were, I didn't think you looked like, you didn't look like you were in
More
the,
qualified than I am in that
you didn't look like you were in the
domain.
budget mood, so I'm going to ask Chris. Hey, Chris, so I'm just trying to understand this real quick. We had 20 FTEs, 10 funded and 10 unfunded in our FY18 adopted budget. I got
Correct.
that. So then we have the list on up top, 20 FTEs going down, and so the ones that are filled are actually, we've hired those people and they're on board, right? Kind of, they're filled, so we're, that's what that means, right? They're, in the green, it says filled. Maybe that's, at least says that,
That might be
right?
Lisa's spreadsheet.
That means they're on board, went through
Yeah.
your office,
Yep.
they're filled, okay. And then, so it looks like we have the middle school and high school contingency, there's 2 there for an anticipation, that's good. And then there's 1.2 and 1.0 and 1.0 for elementary art, music, and PE, Hampton Oaks Elementary, and then compliance, PK autism. So those are to be filled, those 3.2, right, Lisa? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. Okay, so I got that, I understand that. So it says we have so that says we have 19 FTEs, 1 remaining. What does that mean?
That there were 10 that were funded and 10 that were unfunded.
Right.
And if you add all these numbers up, it comes to 19.
Okay, all the numbers that we see, so there's 1 extra remaining out there.
Yeah, so in the budget, there were 20 FTEs approved, 10 funded, 10 unfunded.
Right.
So that's eating up 19 of those initial 20.
Okay.
But the need goes beyond that
There's
initial
1 extra
20.
there, just in case something else pops up.
It's brought down to the bottom.
So it's brought down to the
Try
six.
to separate them into funded and unfunded,
Right.
the original 20.
Okay.
And then where we would need the additional growth positions for the SCPS staffing plan compliance. So I just wanted you all to see all of the compliance
Right.
things separately, with the exception of the elementary contingency, which is at the very bottom.
Oh, okay, I got it. Remaining from above, I got it. So 386,000 is for the 9.5, or not 9 positions
Yeah.
up top?
That's-
That were unfunded?
That's correct. It's the 6 because some of them were funded. So we've used, of the 10 that were unfunded, 4 were already notified to you guys a few months ago
Okay,
for
right.
ESOL compliance positions, so it left 6. So that's to cover the 6 of the unfunded FTEs that were approved in the budget.
Okay, and then, of course, so then the 6.5 down below, and that's 418,000.
Correct.
Okay.
we're using, I guess, are we using real math or are we using FTE math? Are we using like 65K FTE?
Yeah, it's
averaged
roughly a
out?
little under 65K, including benefits and health per FTE for
Right,
teacher
okay.
position.
Okay, so that's what, but we think, to Mrs. Egan's point, though, and I think the rest of the board members, have we already polled our schools, Lisa? Or Tom and Gang, have we already polled the schools about, what are you guys looking like right now? I mean,
They've been looking at these schedules for all the secondary.
Okay,
schools.
so we're-
Carrie's and Teresa have been looking at all
Teresa
the
has been,
numbers,
okay.
Pulling numbers every day.
okay, so we're not gonna have any crazy surprise, probably not, any crazy surprises. Never know, but
You
we
never
don't,
know, at
okay.
certain areas, certain schools
Sure.
tend to have.
We're a lot of latecomers.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just trying to feel us out, figure out how much.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's good, thanks.
On that note, can we get a report sometime early in the school year on how many positions are filled with long-term subs?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do have some other information for you about long-term subs that you had requested.
That's useful now, or?
Probably not so
Okay.
useful now, but
All right, thanks.
Well, it wouldn't be a board meeting if I didn't ask. I know we still have our elementary contingency. I know that when we went through a lot of stuff during the spring about redistricting, some of us raised some concerns about Margaret Brent's numbers. The projected number is like 827 students, which Ms. Healy and I are woefully know that that is not going to be on here. But I don't see Margaret Brent listed on this sheet, and I'm just curious. I know we are talking about these contingency positions. I would like to know who we think may need them, because I was very impressed with how we listed that we are trying to stay within the class size initiative that the board really, that we passed, that some of these are for that reason, but I always have to look out for my friends because they are big.
Absolutely. When we were working on the agenda item last week, all of Margaret Brent's classes, the average class size fell within the staffing standards. However, as of
Today.
2:45 today, their kindergarten and first grade are both exceeding the cap. And those are positions that we spoke with Mr. Fitzgerald about space availability. And when I met with Ms. Neely and Mrs. Kale, those were positions that arose even as early as Sunday evening.
I think one of the things that is difficult for the board, and it's because we do have people coming and going and dropping, and Synergy has helped us know who's in the queue, but really, we still don't know till September. And some of us have been parents standing at back-to-school night and see a line out the door, and they're not here just to say hi. They're saying, hi, I'm bringing my family. Yeah, am I supposed to register? So I am encouraged that we are doing this contingency and stuff, but we will need them. And I think that's something that is very apparent here is, as we've all said, we are growing. We accounted for really 20 positions plus really an additional 6 more. We're still adding even more than what we had in our budget. So we will have to add that next year because I don't see a lot of people disappearing before then. So I truly appreciate everybody's work. I like how we were told, staffing plan compliance, and all that. So I do think this is a conversation we're going to need to continue to have. I know we won't have our numbers till September, mid-September is the date. Is that right? I forget who has to do that lovely. Chris, is it you? Oh, you guys, what day do they do the drop?
After the no-show.
Yeah.
The 10-day report.
Okay. So I know as soon as we have that available, I know Mr. Haran now has somebody else to help him, Matt. So this will be his life. But I think the more we make sure that our community also is aware of, we're crowded. I admit, I know I can speak to Margaret Brent, but when you have now, I guess, if you say that kindergarten and first have gone up, that's going to be 6 sections in every classroom, K to 5, with 4th and 5th grade, I know are at 7. That's a lot of people. There's just no way around it. And I think we just need to start making sure that us and our community is very aware of that fact. Seeing that
Madam
this-
Chair, just dovetail on your, so these positions will all be hired now? So that's what we'll do, right? I mean, I'm encouraging you to do that, if that's not what you're doing.
Pending your approval.
So pending the approval of the thing, we'll hire them now, so we're not jockeying around in October trying to find good help?
Our principal, we have been in communication,
Okay.
Mrs. Kale and I have been in communication with the principals, and there may have been interviews that have already been conducted.
Okay, good. All right, good. Sounds good. Thanks, Teresa.
Ms. Healy?
Do we have any contingency plans in place if we do have
That's
no-shows?
the next year.
And some of these positions that are going to schools because they're exceeding the standards, and with the no-shows, they don't exceed, but then other ones are exceeding, when this comes in, are people aware that, there may be some flexibility, although we won't know? I mean, so that it's almost like the ones that have them registered early are the lucky ones.
Yes.
Because we're not going to be able to come up with another 10 or 15 positions, after the fact. And you figure if you're one above, in terms of the average, and then you get another class, and that drops your class size by like 4 or 5. In some cases, maybe
Well,
around
I think
3
the
or
que-
4.
no,
I don't,
yeah.
I mean, I just think it's something we need to keep in mind.
That's good.
Because this is as of today, but we're a couple weeks from school, and even the day school starts, they're not all there. So I think there needs to be some kind of,
So I think the question is,
Consideration.
Ms. Healy, that I was thinking the same thing. So what happens, Chris, Bruce, if we have to go back and get 5 or 8 more contingency? Do we have the wherewithal and the funding to do that?
Well, we'd have to come back to the board, first of all,
Right.
to look at the additional FTEs, and then Chris would be needing to look at projected expenditures and what we are comfortable in terms of salary lapse in the coming year, which he's working on. And, his comfort level is good for what we're asking for
Now.
today.
All right.
But if there's a need for additional FTEs, we will be back asking and have a strategy for how we would fund them. We also monitor, what the class loads look like in other areas, and it doesn't happen very often, but we have taken FTEs or fractions of FTEs away from folks where it didn't look like there was the demand in the school, and reallocated that FTE elsewhere in the division.
well, it looks like you did that to Forge.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's life. If we want to have a standard, then it
It
should
is,
apply
yeah.
across the board. Now, do we have our staffing standards for the middle school? I mean, we've had issues in the past with the English and math and sciences, the core subjects having, 30, high 30s in those classes. I mean, what are our averages in those core subjects in the middle school? Do we know?
Looking around 30.
30 would be fantastic if we could do that.
It was 35 and 37 last year.
You're right.
Right, and
36-ish.
we've looked out for those this year, and they've done quite a bit of, Tom can speak a little bit more to that, because he and Mrs. Kale looked at all of those.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's great. If that's covered, then I'm pleased.
Yeah, I've met with every middle school and high school, and we're trying to keep those numbers below 30.
Wow.
Every once in a while, it might sneak up to 32, but that might be your geometry class where you have one section. So it doesn't make sense to have 2 sections of.
Well, compared to years, I remember going to North Stafford with Mrs. Kidby and sitting in a class where kids were on the floor, and there were like 39 in the upper level math classes.
We're working
Those
to
were
try
the
to keep
days.
them
I think
up.
you were there.
I was.
They were happy times, right? That's wonderful. Thank you for.
Don't sit down yet. I
keeping an eye on
have
that.
a quick question also.
Go, Ms.
Madam
Egan.
Chair. I've heard that Colonial Forge recently lost a DE teacher, English as well. Brook Point lost theirs last year. What's going on with DE? I'm getting a lot of questions about dual enrollment and why are we not able to fill these positions again, and what are the changes that have been made recently for the requirements? I guess I don't know if it's a state requirement or if it's a requirement of the, whether it's Germanna or Mary Wash or whoever we're working with on the DE classes. I don't know what to tell folks, so if you could maybe just give me a little
Right.
101 DE, that would be helpful to me.
In order for a teacher to be approved to teach dual enrollment through the community college system, they have to have a master's degree in that content area, or they need to have 18 credit hours within that content area. And what we're finding is that we're not finding folks coming out with a master's in their content area. They might get a master's in teaching and learning, but even though they've had all these classes, it doesn't apply specifically to English or to chemistry. In the recent issue with the chemistry with the governor's school, that is a requirement that they have, and for the last 16, 17 years with the governor's school, we've been allowed to have teacher of record. The governor, or the Germanna Community College, is going through their accreditation, their audits, and they're looking back at what they've been doing and how they've been providing instruction to get the dual enrollment and credits. We were not able to use them or continue to use them to offer DE chemistry. So we've looked out to other providers, and we've reached out to Richard Bland College, William and Mary, which is based through William and Mary, so they are at a little different standards than our community college. So we're able to, they're going to honor what we've been doing with Germanna for the last 17 years.
So is that something that we can rectify at Brook Point with the loss of our English DE teacher?
What we've also done with Brook Point is that we have a teacher who's close, but not there at 18 credit hours yet, and Richard Bland is willing to work with them, knowing that there's a plan in place for that teacher to complete the required hours before this year is over.
Okay.
And I believe she may even be finished at this point or within the next week or so.
So would it be safe to say that before the end of the year, we'll be able to offer that?
We are offering dual enrollment English at Brook Point High
We are?
School. Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All
And
right. well,
Colonial
that-
Forge High School had the resignation of a teacher.
Okay,
And right now, we're looking at different avenues to try and provide that instruction.
okay, great. That helps. Thank you.
I would just like to compliment the staff on saying when this hiccup, or whatever word we'd want to use, with Germanna came, that there was a willingness to reach out to other higher learning institutions in Virginia, and they were willing to work with us. And so I just would like to say to the staff, way to problem solve and go out. And, we may, as we move forward, expand this particular, maybe there are more opportunities through this particular partnership, nothing against Germanna, but perhaps this particular partnership may allow a broader opportunity. So I would just like to thank the staff, especially because I have a dual enrollment English student myself. So,
I'd like to second that, too. Thank you.
so thank you all for that. Again, we know this will come back to us generally when we look at class size, but I know this is certainly an area the board will want to continue to monitor when we hit September. I know many of us go to back-to-school nights, and when we see the lines out the door, we'll call you, say, guess what? But I think this also goes, I know, to something that, and I hate to speak for Ms. Healy and myself, but this is one I think I can. This is one of those areas that I think we still really need over the summer, the admin help, so we can be as far ahead as we can on this. However, as we all know, many people are wait to the last minute, so we always are going to have that. But what more can we as a board support to make sure that we can make this as easy a process as possible within the parameters that we have? So I gave our usual speech.
No, that's a good thing. And actually, maybe we need to put that in our strategic plan to, to encourage early registration, because then we wouldn't be hit with these last minute and trying to run around trying to find more staff or reallocate or something. But it's something that we, I know we're doing a lot of community outreach, and perhaps it's something we could do through our Head Start, people. I'm sure they do everything they can, but, getting the word out in the community, and it won't all be, English speaking, as well. But the sooner we can get them to register, the better prepared we'll be to start the school year.
And is it safe to say that our Synergy system now, we do allow some online, is there anybody that can just give the quick overview on that? Because I think that's a huge improvement. Anybody know anything about Munis? Not me, but. Give us the 1 or 2 line one. I mean, I think this is actually a great improvement for us.
During the technology age.
Go ahead.
No, it has provided a significant improvement in our time relapse and getting schedules made, because once they put it in on your device or your computer or whatever, it's in our system, so our counselors and our data people are not setting there re-entering data for a second time. So it has sped up the process.
Because in the past, I know we had to physically have the parent come to the school with everything. At least now they can send ahead, hey, I'm coming from California. They can do something online. They're not officially done, but at least there's a placeholder that the family of the Joneses is coming and can at least help us see them in the system. You know, we still need their official paperwork, but at least, but if we can forecast a little better. So that was really my comment, is a great use of technology. So. There you go. So, thank you, Tom, for taking the technology hit. All right, with all that being said, this particular agenda item, I find rather urgent, but, it's been moved and seconded to move 5.02 and the approval of these positions to action. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, so I will look at HR and say, hire, hire, hire. Great candidates. All right, that is our last agenda item. Our next meeting, our next regularly scheduled meeting should be on September 12th. Right now, do we have a work session scheduled? Not at this time?
FC's Thursday.
Right. So we will, there is a FABC meeting on Thursday. So hearing none, everybody, have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Meeting's
See
adjourned.
ya.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.